In 2015, the state of Utah experienced some pretty serious flash flooding. We're going to get into the how and why, but first let's explain a little bit about the events that occurred. As you see in places like Zion National Park, Utah has a pretty unique terrain. Now, September 14th, a bunch of thunderstorms come in. Around this time of late summer and fall actually is monsoon season, so Utah got some pretty nasty flash flooding by these very narrow canyons and valleys being pushed past their carrying capacity, and all this rain going into these tiny valleys. Now, flash flooding occurs when there's a bunch of rain and usually exacerbated by dry land, which Utah is, and the water can't soak into the ground because it's usually so dry. It's not used to soaking up that much water and overflows, causing floods. So it's both these canyons and valleys being flooded, and also the carrying capacity of the ground is not very high because it's usually so dry. Both flash floods occurred in Hilldale, Utah, which is pretty close to Zion National Park, and actually flooded the highway and took the lives of 20 people and caused a lot of property damage, and there was not enough time to get to high ground for a lot of people. So why does all of this happen, and how does it happen? Now, as we talked about before, Utah has a lot of canyons, a lot of valleys, and how these get water in them is from snowcaps on the mountains melting in the spring. So runoff from the snow melt goes into these valleys, and that's where some of this flooding happens in the springtime. You see here in this diagram, water levels rise as the snow melts. We're reaching Utah. Storms from the Pacific and air from the Pacific have to rise over mountains like the Sierras and the Cascades, and this very moist air is forced to rise and then precipitates before it reaches Utah. So not very much moist air there. Also, the prevailing westerlies are relatively dry. So in the springtime, not much rainfall. The floods are mostly from snowmelt. Now, very bad flooding does not happen in the same place in Utah very often. So it'll happen every couple of years, and the affected area is usually pretty small. But things like construction, mining from a very long time ago, and the addition of impervious surfaces like parking lots really don't help. One of the reasons that Utah was so susceptible to floods in 2015 was because of a drought they had earlier in the year. And this was during September, which is monsoon season, which means that there's a very high risk of flash flooding and high winds. Just this year, there was fear of up to 50 mile per hour winds in August, and it can also cause mudslides, very dangerous, and there's a lot of debris that comes along with this flooding as well. Now, mudslides are exacerbated by the erosion caused by deforestation, mining, more impervious surfaces being built, and also carry a lot of dangerous debris often, and contamination from anything it runs over. There were immediate efforts after the floods to restore infrastructure and safety. Utah has also implemented mobile surveillance units that monitors Utah's streams and rivers 24/7, and in response to the flooding, there was also improvements in infrastructure. So drainage systems and culverts, which you see in the top right corner, which redirect water from obstacles. In addition to this, a lot of communities in Utah revised their zoning laws, so they added restrictions to building in floodplain areas where flooding was almost guaranteed to occur. The 2015 floods killed a lot of people and left many without cars or homes. The flooding swept cars away. The community of Utah is very rightfully so scared and nervous about these conditions, and hopefully have now some protection from flooding.